Hi everyone, thank you for joining us tonight. If you can just bear with me a moment just while I share this onto Facebook, I would appreciate it. Just give us a couple of seconds. Thank you very much for bearing with us and waiting in the chat. We really do appreciate it. We just had a couple of technical issues, and I actually thought for 1 minute that we was being stopped doing this. So let's have a look. 1 minute that we was being stopped. Hi everyone, thank you. I'm just going to share. I'll literally be a few minutes, if that. If anyone else can share for us, that would be great. Hi, Incognito, Michael, Ollie, and everyone else. Hello. I'm just going to share it one more time, and then I'll write above it when we finish this stream. Just want to get it onto Fighting for Justice. All right. Melanie, thank you for joining me. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm just looking at my camera now, so I've got cameras in front of me all over the place here.
I know. Thank you for joining me tonight. Obviously, today marks the 8-year anniversary in the sad death of Matthew Leahy, who is your son. For 8 years. Yeah, for 8 years you've been fighting, and just for the people who are not aware, could you tell us about Matthew? Start at the beginning, if that's okay. Tell us about Matthew and what happened, please.
Okay, so Tracy, well, thanks for having me on here. I really have come on tonight because I feel I have an important message to give the nation, to be fair, and I hope that even when we finish, people will share this story out. So thank you for this opportunity. Matthew died 8 years ago today, and I really need to speak on his behalf and behalf of all the foul families that I've met on this journey. He was 20 years old. He was taken in under the mental health system on the 7th of November, 2012. And, you know, as a mother that's been struggling with their son and trying to get what you feel is the best professional help available, he went under the care of the North Essex Partnership Trust. He was sectioned for his own safety. Day 2 of admission, he called his dad to say he's being drugged and raped. I called the ward. He said, the ward told me that, no, it's part of his delusions. He's actually happy in art class. Don't know what you're on about. I couldn't get to speak to him. They'd advised me not to visit for a week. The end of that week come on the, I'm trying to think whether it was Thursday or Friday now, it's all a blur. But before I got to see him, I had received a call from the doctor on the ward who says that Matthew's been found hanging. It doesn't look good. He was already dead. He'd been dead an hour. And then you go through the process of the justice system takes over. My son was a crime scene. I wasn't allowed to touch him. I wasn't privy to a lot of what went on behind the scenes. I today, even 8 years on, I have not seen the internal statements that were taken from the staff. I've questioned an awful lot because what I've been told, I know isn't the truth. And I know that my son didn't die the way that I've been told. On this journey, I've met multiple families that are also been in this predicament. They've gone through the inquest process and feeling that they're going to get the answers that they require, and they're going to find out what happened and who is responsible and what, you know, what truly went wrong. And the inquest process just served to give us more questions. I met another mum whose son had died 4 years earlier to Matthew in a very copycat death. Again, questions that she needed answers weren't answered. And the way that her son, she'd been told her son had died, just didn't make sense. So we worked together and we put together evidence for 7 kids that had died the same way. Oh, I'm saying kids, but there was also a lady that had been suffering dementia, so it affects all ages. Now, these are inpatients that are meant to be kept safe. They're in a place of safety. They weren't. I presented that evidence, I don't know how many times, to the police. Anyway, just recently we've succeeded in the trust giving a guilty plea for failings in health and safety to 11 deaths. What happened in July 16 was the health and safety executive suddenly, after 3 years or 2 years, decided to, this is important what this mum's saying. And he started listening. I found the right person. He started to listen and he got that ball rolling. By November 16, I think it was January 17, the police then opened up their books and they started looking again. So we went, I think it started with 125 deaths, which were whittled down to 25, and they started a corporate manslaughter investigation. That went on for 4.5 years. And in November 18, we were dropped the bomb that they were closing the case down. There wasn't enough evidence. But HSE continued. And only last week, yes, they just concluded that the trust was guilty of 11 deaths. But their timelines are so varied because they went from, the police was going from 2000 to 2015. HSE went from 2004 to 2015. The government are now saying that they're going to allow a review of the deaths, which is from 2008 to 2015. It's like they keep cutting out deaths and let's make the amount lesser. And yet, it's all, in my mind, wrong because multiple patients have died and they're not being acknowledged. It's like their deaths don't matter. Matthew would want me to, sorry.
Oh, no, you go, Melanie.
I would say Matthew would want me to fight. On this journey, I have met and spoken and texted to multiple families. My son was in a place of safety. He was on an adult ward. We all hear daily, we've got kids in CAMS that are being abused. It happens to all ages. Abused, there's sexual abuse going on, there's physical abuse going on. What I've been doing for the last 8 years has not stopped it on the wards under Essex Partnership Trust, who are the new trust. Like what they're saying, every 90 seconds in the UK, someone is dying by suicide. Now, I don't believe for a minute my son died by suicide, but I know that there are many, many that have. And there's something like, I read today, 22,000 inpatients are dying each year. Why are the public not up in arms about this?
Yeah.
This is what I fight for.
Yeah. Just to go back, if that's okay with you, because I remember seeing a clip as well, just to back up something you were saying as well. I remember seeing a clip online of a recording of dear Matthew, and he actually did call the police when he was in there, didn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And wasn't listened to.
Now, the recording, that's only a snippet that's played on the BBC. It's on my Facebook page, Justice for Matthew Leahy. Well, I've just changed it. I've got 2 now. So the other one is Failed by Essex Mental Health Services. Yes, 3 times in that recording, he says that he's bleeding heavily. He's been drugged and raped. He was very coherent. He was very clear. And I can tell by my son's voice, he was very scared. And at the end of the call, the police asked him to pass the phone over to an advocate. And he was frightened because he knew that he would be in trouble because staff knew that he'd called the police then. I was told he was in art class. I didn't know the police were there at that time and they were interviewing Matthew. The report back to me was that Matthew was slurred of speech and that he didn't have mental capacity. The staff told me he had no mental capacity to be able to be examined. blah, blah, blah. They had done no mental capacity assessment on my son at all in those 7 days. They had no care plan for my son. He had no key worker. He had not been fed, and yet he had been highly medicated. And shortly after he had made the call to the police, the records indicate that he was given rapid tranquilization, which was 10 milligrams of haloperidol, 2 milligrams of lorazepam. And I've only just got that information during COVID, so that nurse is now going to be investigated, because any rapid tranquilization of any patient, you should then do blood pressure checks, heart rate checks, There was the doctor prescribed 5 milligrams of haloperidol. This nurse gave him 10 plus 2 lorazepam and did no checks whatsoever after doing it. A few hours later, it's reported he was at the office complaining his legs were weak. He was given a drug called procyclidine, 5 milligrams. 10 minutes later, he was given another 5 milligrams. 2 hours later, he was given another 5 milligrams. And then so many hours after that, he was given something like 20 milligrams within 16 hours, where he was prescribed no more than 15 over a 24-hour period. And yet there is no risk assessment. There is no rationale for why that was administered. And the next few days, there are no records at all. And if people don't already know the story, but he was, the care plan that was non-existent was falsified after he died. And it just goes on.
Just you had an inquest, didn't you? And I know
Yes.
other things came. And so on. Could you also, if you're allowed to, tell us about any of that? And also, what was the verdict of the inquest?
Could you just go back on the last bit, because I missed it, what you said?
They're probably cutting my feed. You had an inquest, didn't you? And obviously things come out in the inquest about bruising and other places where there were needle marks. What can you tell us about, what came out in the inquest, which was obviously suspicious, and what the verdict was?
Well, to be fair, Tracy, I don't know how the inquest concluded the way it did. Yeah. The pathologist didn't mention any bruises on Matthew's ankles. That was kept out of it. I've only just read that in the small print. He was very clever in the way he worded what he said, and it was there was no defensive marks on the torso. He didn't include the legs or the ankles, so that didn't even come to the jury's attention. As far as the needle wounds were concerned, the coroner had someone phone A&E and just come back with 99% sure that they were done in A&E. He had 4, possibly 5 needle wounds, 4 in the left groin and 1 in the right groin. And you can say possibly done in A&E, and I've received a letter from the director of nursing there saying 99% they were done. But I would imagine that if anyone made any needle wound in the groin or anywhere on anybody, there should be a document that says that, and there isn't. So to this day, no, don't know where they came from, who did them. I did approach certain staff that were at A&E at the time. I emailed them, blah blah blah, and had no response.
So there was no Mars chart record there then, which would say how the medication was administered, wouldn't it? And that's what they're meant to have.
Matthew had a gauze on his elbow, where it's noted that he was given adrenaline through the elbow, whatever they call it, something focular, I don't know, through there, and gauze was put on. So he was in his boxer shorts. So what did they do? Inject him, do whatever they did at A&M, pull his boxers back up again, and not put gauze on it? It doesn't make sense. No, there's too many questions.
Did they obviously Matthew was in a room, did they bring in evidence bags, forensics, and the forensics go through the room?
No, this is why I'm calling for a public inquiry. There was no notebooks, there was no file on Matthew. The police kept notebooks. The ligature had been destroyed. The room wasn't sealed. The patient had been moved in an hour and a half after Matthew died. So any evidence there may have been, they went back 2 days after I died. They phoned me up and said, we're going to do a full forensics of the room. And I said, well, what are you going to forensic? And they said, well, the room. And I said, well, they moved the patient, and then within an hour and a half of his death, I called the ward because I couldn't find his mobile phone. And they told me they moved the patient in there. Well, the police put the phone down on me. And, you know, even what's important for me tonight, really, to get across, rather than obviously all the shit that's gone on with Matthew, is what's happened to him is multiplied across the country. We need accountability, we need justice, and we need truth, all of us. And I'm calling for this public inquiry. Now, if we can get a public inquiry in Essex, we've been through reviews. Multiple families have been through reviews. We've been through inquests. We have got bit part evidence for all of our loved ones that have died. We need to have a public inquiry here in Essex. I can't expand it across the country because it's going to spread too thin if we do that. So if we can get a public inquiry in Essex, we can clearly look at what's been going on here. And then we hear this learning lessons mantra, but let's get to the truth of what's truly been allowed to go on and gone systemically wrong, and then push it up the country. The government is now at the moment pushing us for another review. I refuse to take on that on board because we need staff under oath. The problem at the moment is staff they have a freedom to speak up, Guardian. They are being bullied. The minute they speak up, they are bullied, and they are scared to lose their jobs. We're being told, yes, we'll let them tell the truth. We'll let them speak out. We'll let them do this. It's not happening. But they can come and they can get involved in my call, and we will promise their anonymity. At the moment, within Essex, I have nearly 55 families on board. We have whistleblowers. The stories that are coming out are horrendous, and I'm sure these stories multiply up the country exactly the same. The culture of bullying is horrendous. I printed off a few bits today, what staff say, just about North Essex, and I'm sure it's said across the land. And we've got abysmal leadership at all levels of management with zero accountability for their actions. Very negative and demoralising work environment at every site worked at. Staff retention is appalling and bullying is rife. Expect nothing to be done properly and to be victimised for raising concerns in good faith. Goes against anything the NHS stands for. Please avoid the mistake we made and avoid this employer like the plague. Well, the NHS needs staff and needs staff to work within the system, and we need you. We need good staff to be working within the NHS to help our loved ones. They can't be vindicated for telling the truth and explain, trying to improve things for patients. It must, it has to be stopped. I've lost your feed, Tracy. Are you still there?
I'm still here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I just can't see you.
Yeah, no, that's all right. I'll be back on in a second. Just to say before I go to the next question, Melanie, with regards to the accountability, what I've learned along this horrendous journey myself is the only way it seems, because one thing I've been doing is learning, the law, the real law, is to get the accountability. Instead of taking the corporation to court, you take the person, the people who was involved in Matthew's care, who were meant to, have his best interests and everything else, and saw him on a daily basis. The ones who didn't, where's the marchart? Where's the filling in of the daily logbook on the care they gave to him and everything else? It's them ones, and that is the only way that I am seeing that we can get accountability in this country, and that's across the world. And once we can start doing that, then people will think twice about following an order, because that's what they're doing, or not just following an order. I don't believe in Matthew. My case was following orders. Your case was, well, I wouldn't like to say, that's not for me to say, that, that's for you to say what you think. It's just horrendous. And, you know, Matthew's death, like you said, is suspicious.
The sad thing is, this is it. So at 8 years down, I have still to see the police report. I have never seen internal statements taken from staff. Staff have never been interviewed under oath. And this is why I'm left in this predicament and having to call for a public inquiry. And why is that? Why can't these staff be put in a room with me and let's have a chat and let's see what did go wrong? What happened? Did something you do wrong go? You know, it's like I've never been able to ask that. And the problem is that the staff that I know are accountable, or should be accountable, have been recycled. They get moved. Some have been promoted and they have very high up positions within the NHS. Some have gone to work in senior roles in the CQC and now inspecting other trusts. And you think, hold on, you mucked up in your own trust, and now you are holding your head up as an inspector of other trusts, looking at other people on whether they're doing their job right, and you didn't do yours right. It doesn't make sense, and the NHS needs to stop protecting people like that. And
Well,
you know,
yeah, usually what I have found is they don't move up into these positions for being good, truthful people. You know,
no,
they move
I
up
mean,
in these positions when they know that they can use these people to assist in cover-ups. Like there's no one high in the Met Police force that have got there because, you know, they've been out on the streets, done a dangerous job of catching a murderer. It's because they know they can use these to cover up. The same with common purpose people. You know, and what you've suffered and other families have suffered is terrible. Can I ask you about the fact that you went through a corporate manslaughter investigation? You know, what happened there?
well, even with the corporate manslaughter, I don't know how many other families, but I certainly sat through waited the 4.5 years for a result in that case and never once was interviewed. And what was shocking at the end of it is there was one boy who had died. His family had got his case twice to the CPS. Yet with his case and another 24 deaths on top of it, Essex Police did not get that case to the CPS once. They took it to their own barrister, and this particular barrister said it doesn't reach the bar for corporate manslaughter. And by doing so, as families, we had no victim's right to review. So that's it. It was like dropped on us like a bomb that this is over. And sadly, you know, the heartbreaking thing was there was families that had put their loved one's death to bed, and it had been resurrected in this case. They hadn't even told, like I said to you, it had gone from 125 deaths to 25. And then on the night they're telling us that they're dropping the case, we're then told it had actually gone to 10. So there was 15 families sat in that room that needn't have been there. It was heartbreaking. And I was so upset at that. And we still don't have the police report because everything has been held back because of the health and safety investigation. So, I mean, where I'm at now is calling for this public inquiry. I spent last Saturday evening from about 5 o'clock till 2 in the morning emailing just under 600 MPs with a briefing paper that I'd prepared, explaining to them about the debate that's going to happen at the end of November. I know that at the moment there's I believe 7 MPs that have come forward to say they're going to be attending. So what I want to say to people, you've written to your MPs, I hope. If not, there's a template letter on my webpage, which is www.cure mental health. You'll find a template letter there. Those of you that are listening that have written to your MPs and got back the standard reply, you know, I'm getting back, you're not a constituent, I can't work for you. I would urge you, please, to write back and say to them, Melanie may not be a constituent, but you are one, you know, you could be 1 in 4 of how many people that might have a mental health problem. And every MP has a problem with mental health within their area. Every MP should be attending this. There was a disability debate, 7 MPs turned up. I'll be damned if I've worked my nuts off to get all these 105,000 signatures and only 7 MPs turn out to talk about accountability within mental health services. This is a nationwide problem, and every MP across the country should be turning out to address the issues, because until we can address the accountability in mental health, we will not have the changes that are needed in this country.
There's so much going on in all different departments, you know, social services, mental health, on the street. Yep. You know, there's so much things that people are getting away with, and everything is being covered up by people in institutions, by people in Parliament, in the police, you know, in mental health. No one seems to be doing the right thing. Now, I can gather with your case, and, you know, dear Matthew's case, like mine, there's many people involved in this. Isn't it just one or two? There's many, isn't there?
Yes, it's systemic. This is systemic. I can quote, like, from my solicitors, what they've been sending out for Parliament. Basically, they've said, the families we represent have lost loved ones needlessly after they suffered abuse and exploitation. We also represent families whose loved ones continue to suffer in what should be safe and caring institutions. This cannot go on. A full and open investigation via a public and statutory inquiry is urgently needed to ensure the safeguarding of all those requiring mental health. As the leading solicitor for the families, we have no doubt in our minds that if action is not taken and quickly, significant numbers of individuals will continue to suffer ongoing physical, emotional, and psychological abuse. Some, like Melanie Leahy's son and the children of the many families who are on board with us, will actually die. And yeah, just last Friday before last, a patient managed to take their own lives after they absconded from the Linden Centre. And only today, I've had a young girl, she's in intensive care, she's took an overdose, and we've had somebody's gone under the train at Harlow. There's too much going on, and you know, we've had a 13-year-old, she's died. The mental health team apparently wrote to her and signed her off, and she's took her life.
I know sorry, go on, Melanie.
Well, a mother who's lost her son, she couldn't sleep. You can't sleep after something like that, can you? She decided she needed to. She turned her phone off. Her phone's off. She wakes to a missed call from the CPN, her community psychiatric nurse. So she calls and says, I'm really sorry, I've been sleeping. And they looked in the file and they said, patient did not answer call, does not need our service, discharged. WTH or whatever, FAFT, it should be patient did not answer our call the police.
Exactly, check on her. Exactly.
But this is what's happening. Yeah. This is what's happening. We've got the kids. I mean, I'm in a little group they call themselves MH Warriors, Mental Health Warriors. You'll find them online, or Mental Health Movement. So we've got the kids like Danielle. She's been stuck in confinement. She has autism. She's not had the assessment she needs. Where the government was saying they would get all the kids out before, I don't know whether it was last year. There's so many of them still trapped in these environments, and they should be in the community getting the care that they need. People are interested. Transforming Care on File on 4, Andrea and her son, her daughter Danielle, and it talks about Bethany, where Bethany was stuck in her 4 walls. And her dad complained, and then she got moved, and she was stuck in 4 walls without a hatch then. And now she's out in the community, she's doing yoga, she's, you know, they all deserve so much more.
Have you come across, just to ask, any, you know, because, for example, if they put someone in prison, they make money from it. The courts make money from it, the prisons make money from it. Where is the root? Yeah, where is the root of money in these institutions? Because they say follow the money, don't they? I mean, obviously there's going to be a lot in the drugs anyway, but you know, what have you found?
Right, so the money goes different areas. So you've got the child that the local authority doesn't want to rehouse and put in the community. It's going to cost like £750,000 a year. So if they send them into an institution, it's going to cost 250,000. It's a lot cheaper. It's someone else's budget then. So it's in their interest to keep them there. If you've got even if you've got a death, it's money, because the coroner then gets a job, the undertaker gets a job. Oh my God, the reports that come out of it, the money in reports. If they told us the truth in the first place, God knows how much money has been spent with me. PHSO for 4.5 years, police for 4.5 years, sending me for a review and this review and that review. If I'd had the truth in the first place, all those people would be out of a job. It's all a money circle. And then unfortunately I have people that come to me and go, well, yeah, we know what you're saying, Mel, but you know, the services aren't getting enough funding and they're understaffed, blah, blah, blah. So, for example, we had severals in Colchester. The trust sold that for something like 6.5 million, and it's become a nice housing estate. So then you have to look at the other side of it. There's a merger, and they merged North Essex Partnership Trust and South Essex Partnership Trust to produce Essex Partnership Trust. In that merger, senior managers or whatever, they lose their job, get a new contract with a new company. Some left, some didn't, but they get their pension pot, they get a redundancy. Then the merger happened so many weeks earlier, so they get money for that as well. But literally, they've gone from one job to the next the next day. The payout on that was something like 6 million as well. So it's like, that's where the money is going. It's the senior management are earning thousands out of mental health patients. Staff aren't getting the support they need. They're not getting the training they need when they do complain. It's I've got staff said we wanted to talk to the CQC when they come. We weren't allowed to talk to them on our own. We had to be careful what we said. We will watch what we said. We were, this doesn't discriminate. This, all what's happening, homeless, unemployed, builders, reality stars, footballers, it doesn't matter who you are. If you need mental health care, it needs to be safe. And at the moment, it's not. End of story.
I know when I came and I was humbled to be asked to speak at your demo that you had in Chelmsford, and I met and spoke to the gentleman whose son went into the Linden Centre and within 12 hours later was found brain dead. 12 hours after going in there. And
Yes.
people have to start questioning, a lot of people out here, because of the media and the way they portray things, will look at it that if someone goes in there, maybe they wasn't stable anyway and they've just committed suicide. Yeah, it is not like that.
The whole purpose is that people, he put himself there. He asked for help. He knew that he was poorly. He needed help. His observations hadn't been done. They didn't even know where he was, and they've said that he had certain medication. Well, it wasn't in his bloodstream. So someone made that up. I have so many photographs of staff that have come in and they're fast asleep on the job. They're on one-to-one observations with highly vulnerable patients, and they're wondering why they kill themselves when the staff are fast asleep. Come on. So what's the answer? What's happening now is phones are being removed from patients. So do we know that staff are not sleeping again? We don't. We just know that it's harder for staff to actually get the evidence. We've had patients ridiculed. And I had one lady, she went to the press and she said, I was made to sleep on a mattress on the floor in the day room because they had no beds. And the response in the paper was that, no, she made that up. We don't do that. Well, we got evidence of it. And it did happen. Did she get an apology? Did she? Hell. The patients are highly intelligent people. Most, and they're not being listened to. When, the reports we're getting in of the sexual abuse, the rapes that have been going on, staff having sexual relationships. It's not good. It's really not good. Is it a case of bring back matron? I don't know.
Yeah.
How
I think
this is.
matron's always been a good idea. The hospital started failing once they got rid of the matrons and the sisters of the ward, and then cash for contracts, Capita taking it over and hiring out agency staff that are not trained, the lack of care, obviously it being treated more like farming. And like Steve said, you know, they're not care systems, they're abuse systems. Lodge, sorry to read about your father, who went into it was respite for your mother, wasn't it? If I'm correct, it's gone all the way up there. And people of, you know, there is so much going on. Like I said, this is just one department of it. But if Melanie can get what she needs out of this, then you can spread yourself out to, you know, other counties. Do you get people from obviously outside of Essex emailing you?
All over the country, and Ireland, Scotland, Wales. They've, you know, people that have fought like me, they've gone to the court up in Wales or up in Scotland. Sorry. The important thing is, I feel I'm gathering quite a good momentum at the moment, and I think it's important that we, like someone put on Twitter today, we need to unite. And I need all you mums and dads that have been fighting for so long for something in your area, although I'm out of area, to please come on and support me. And let's do this in this area and then push it on over. Too many, it's not just mental health. See, within mental health, you've got autism, you've got learning difficulties, you've got dementia. It all comes under the same umbrella. And each and every one of those are being fouled at the moment. And we need to unite. I have people online that talk just about autism, talk about LD. When I tried to do my petition, it was really difficult to get people to engage because it was just mental health. But mental health is, unfortunately, it's the umbrella for all of those. You all need to unite and work together. We must. There's none of this, oh, we're autistic, we're not mentally ill. You have to get the same treatment. You have to get your care from the mental health package. So really, please work with us to create the change you need for your kids with autism, learning difficulties, dementia. It's so important. Unfortunately, we're all in that same bracket. Although you might feel you're different, it's the same care, and it's the same failings for each and every one of us. One thing I did notice, and I'd like to talk about, but I'm just digressing, is Matthew's care package and everything. When I got his files back, I think this is very important. He was lacking in B12, and he had a folate deficiency. The psychiatrist initially had picked it up. A new psychiatrist took over and missed it. Now, I've looked into B12, and I've spoken to professors, and there's a lady, Tracy, she has a blog page or a web page, B12 deficiency. And my God, I reckon 50% of patients with mental health have a simple B12 deficiency. If you have a loved one within the mental health system or are having any sort of problem with psychosis, mental health, or whatever, please have a B12 check, folate check. It's a simple blood test. Please get it checked, because I think that was the main problem that was with my son. Possible celiac disease and a problem with his thyroid. It was all missed. And if something as simple like that can help somebody, even with a kid with ADHD, is diagnosed with ADHD, get a B12 check done. And I think I just wanted to put that in there. Sorry.
No, I think that's a very good piece of information. I really do.
B12. And the other one, if your loved one is on antipsychotics, check, have they had ECGs? Because they're meant to have ECGs when they get put on these drugs, but a lot of psychiatrists put them on and they just don't do it, because the antipsychotics do things with the heart. Have it checked. It's, you know, again, it's just a simple ask the question. And the other one I wanted to ask about was, I've written it down. What was it? Oh, I noticed Glenn died, Ben died, Matthew died. I know Matthew was having sort of hallucinations as well. He'd been put on a drug called Zopiclone. Zopiclone is for sleep. A lot of people were put on it. When Matthew died, I looked at the paperwork. It was no more than 4 weeks. And then if the sleeping problem hasn't disappeared, doctors need to put them onto something else. Now it's no more than 2 weeks. I've spoken to patients that have been on it 10 years. It's a muscle relaxant. And I know when he first got admitted the year earlier to this last admission, he was took a full medication. He was crying in pain, and his stomach would be constricted, really hard here, soft here, hard here. Do you know what they said to me? He used to smoke a bit of cannabis. They said it's cannabis withdrawal. Well, no, it wasn't. I think it was withdrawal from this drug because his muscles weren't relaxing and he'd been on it for so long. And it can cause hallucinations. So if you've been on that drug for a while, or any of the drug, go and have some checks and ask some questions, because there's, he moved from here to there and whatever, and the doctors just kept sending them out. So he was on Zopiclone for, I think, 2 years, not 2 weeks or 4 weeks, 2 years. And so were the other 2 lads, all dead before they were 20. So, are these drugs safe? I don't believe so. And there's money there when you're talking about where the money comes from.
Yeah, everything's money, isn't it? Going on the uniting of families things,
Yes.
when I became a yellow vest, that's why I was a yellow vest, because even though I had my own horrendous story, I was there with many other people who had different injustices happen to them. And a lot of people who were a yellow vest were just out there because they know everything that's going on is wrong. So you've got, 2 different types, but different stories. So we all united like that with different stories, yellow vest. But obviously, as you know, we got infiltrated, lied about, and everything else. Of course, that's how the government work. But what you tend to find when you're out there, even as a yellow vest, because we was out there so much, we came across so many demos, and you would find that people would just do their own separate demos. So say if sadly someone had been stabbed, the family or friends of that person would do a demo. And then if someone else was stabbed a month later, the family and friends would do that demo, instead of everyone coming together. Exactly what you're saying. Because if you go in stealth mode and show this country, what we really are living under, that we have a de facto government, we have no true representation in this country, we have no accountability, and we know why. If we take the corporations to court, you don't get accountability. Take the people themselves. That is what I've learned on this journey, to get accountability. Because exactly what you said, where they move along, the same with our MP. Now, he did send us a letter to the Attorney General, which holds a lot of weight, but it was never responded to. But however, whether that MP knew it wouldn't get responded to is neither here or there for me, because I still have that letter in black and white showing that he saw the evidence himself. Irrelevant to it not being answered, it backs up what I've been saying since 4 days in of what happened to our boys. So, and the same thing, within 6 days of sending that letter, he was moved to the Northern Ireland office. And this is what they do. They either move them or you get totally ignored.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm presuming in the early days, because it's 8 years on, that you probably had you went through a long period where you was being ignored. And then you showed them that, you're not going anywhere. No matter how many brick walls they're going to put up, you're still going to keep chipping away and chiseling away to get through them. Because
I've been up to London. I've met with Jeremy Hunt, and I didn't meet with him. I ended up at meetings with NHS England, and he happened to be talking. I put certain things to him, and he disagreed, and then realised, actually, what I was saying was right. And I'm sure it would shock a lot of people to know that as part of the investigation into Matthew's death, it came to light there is no policy for safe staffing on a mental health ward. Tracy, you and I, as unskilled as we are, could have her own mental health ward. There is no policy for safe staffing. And when I put that to Jeremy, there was Professor Ted Baker of the CQC sat on my table, and he said, "Oh, Ted, of course there's a policy for safe staffing." And he said, "No, we make recommendations." These things need to change. And it was the same with Essex Police. And when you asked, did they destroy, did they see the room and take evidence? There was no policy, and I still don't know to this day whether that has been changed, for investigating the death on a mental health ward. So each death on a mental health ward was just clearly put down as a suicide. Yet there's patients that are on a mental health ward that rape other patients, might even kill other patients. And yeah, each one, it was just classed as a suicide. So not, I speak to other parents and they said, "Oh no, our room was sealed and the toilet was sealed where my son was found." Da, da, da. It depended on which police officer came along. So it needs a standard, and these are things that have come up since. But where I'm at the moment, I'm being offered a review. That's 5 families out of the 50 or 60 now. And I think they're all going to be approached and say, will you be happy with a review? And I've got to say, no, if we can have reviews coming out of our backside all day long, and nothing gets changed. We need a public inquiry. They did one for mid-staffs, and so much come out on that, which made changes across the nation. We need exactly the same down here. And I want to call out, if any families from Essex, I know that there's some of you. I had a dream last night, so I've got a jumbo jet which is filling up with people ready to take the journey with me, but there's a minibus full of people which are unsure. And I want to say, a lot of you science will come through and say, "Oh, I'm not sure I want to get on this road, this journey with you, because I put it to bed." Have you really put it to bed? Think about it, because now is the time to get on board with us. And whistleblowers, or people that have gone through employment tribunals and you think that you've been wronged, please join our campaign, because you have evidence that could be important for the rest of the country at the end of the day.
Just to say that I'm a level 3 trainer, or I was, I should say, before this happened to my son. A level 3 trainer in the safeguarding of people, and
Yeah.
I was a registered manager as well, which comes under the NHS. So I know how the CQC works. And when the CQC, now any domiciliary company, care, anything under the NHS, and you have a registered manager, they have to be observed by the CQC, as you've quite rightly mentioned. Now, any company, a lot of these companies, like let's just take dom care, domiciliary care, for example, you can be an accountant and start up exactly what you was sort of mentioning earlier. Just say we had no knowledge, we could start up one. You've got accountants starting these businesses up because they see money in it. It's not about care. I've seen, I live in the Linden borough, obviously, treasonous Boris. Treasonous Boris is one of the MPs here, and I've seen how they work. I've seen how they treat people like it's farming, like I said earlier.
Exactly. You've only got to look at the CEOs of these trusts and that, and they're financial wizards.
Yeah.
They're not heroes.
Yeah. I mean, there was a company I don't live far from that has had so many safeguardings against it. It's unbelievable. But because they have a huge amount of staff that can cover a lot of work, they continue to use them.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, I know what goes on in this industry, and well, not just here, many places now.
You've got like the case of Avril Hart, bless her. She died of anorexia. Her father he proved so much with the different services that had failed his daughter, and still they're failing. How many years does it take to sort out a service for these kids? Eating disorders, it's another one that isn't being addressed. Matthew's paperwork said EW, and I'm questioning, what does EW mean? They said, well, and I went, oh. So he ate well this morning then, which was the day that he died. And they said, well, yeah, that's what he says. And what did he have in his stomach at post-mortem? Black liquid. Well, what's that then? Blood. So what had he eaten? Nothing. It's like, you pump my son full of antipsychotic medicine and then anti-Parkinson's medicine and medicine to put him to sleep, and yet didn't put any food in his system. That's the truth of it. You know.
Have you asked, Melanie, for a second inquest?
I have enough probably evidence for a second inquest.
Yeah.
That is not going to fulfill my aim. I need staff under caution and under oath. I've had them under oath in the inquest proceeding already, and I've actually given the evidence to the police that 2 of those that spoke have perjured themselves. And to date, it's not being recognised. So if staff can go under oath, and you know, it's in under God's law, if you like. They said their oath under, you know, God knows what happened. So they'll pay for that. But they did. They took their oath on the Bible, and they lied. So I need them under oath in the police station, and that's the only way to get to the truth. And the only way I can do that is a public inquiry.
Have you requested their training and that? Just going back a bit.
I'm not allowed. I'm not allowed to have it. I'm not allowed to have the internal statements. I'm not allowed that information. It's against what is it? I don't know. Data protection.
Right. So, but you should be entitled to anything to do with regards to your son. So that should show.
No,
nothing?
I'm not allowed it. No, and I've gone back for safeguarding reports, all sorts of different documentation, and it doesn't exist. It's gone missing and cannot be found. And North Essex didn't keep good documents. La la la. Computers were changed over. Yeah. So yeah, public inquiries. It's going to look at who destroyed the computer, who destroyed these documents, who gave permission to have these documents destroyed, who destroyed the CCTV, or on whose say so was that CCTV removed. Why did a ligature get destroyed from a police officer and he retired, and yeah, it wasn't his office and it wasn't his evidence to destroy? There's so many questions that need answering, and this is why
misconduct in office, going back to, you know, and even chemical liquor. That's a funny name. Even chemical liquor, mentioning, you know, like you did about the empty stomach. Now, you know, these people are meant to be medically trained enough to know, and most medication will tell you whether it should be on a full stomach, empty stomach, before they've eaten, before they've not eaten, whether it should be dissolvable in water, whether it shouldn't. So, you know, this is, you know, I wish I could give you some words, but obviously I can't because I don't have none for myself. And I know it's almost up an hour now, and it's been a long day for you, and you know, it's 8 years today. And I know when it comes to anniversaries for me and for you, because we're fighting for justice, I presume it's the same. It just reminds you of how long you've been fighting, because you feel the same every day. Yeah, the anniversary feel no different. It's just a milestone of how long you've been fighting.
All I got to say is, to sum it up, is obviously thank you, Tracy, for this. Thank you for everyone that's been listening. Please, November the 30th is this debate at 4:30. We need to put the pressure on the MPs. I can't do that all myself. You need to. I'm in a predicament. My MP is Priti Patel. She's Home Secretary. She can't act for me. So that's hard in itself. I did think of moving, but I have a few strings under my bow at the moment. But I need everyone else that's got MPs elsewhere to write to them, and again, and not just say that it's Melanie. that you want them to attend for you. You could need services, your loved one could need services, your mum, your dad, anybody in your family or your friends could need the services in your area. Let's get them to debate this accountability and mental health services and a public inquiry for Essex. Thank you all very much for your support, and God bless you all.
Just to add, thank you for everyone joining, your comments. Thank you for yours as well, Juliana. And everyone, there's people, Chelsea Dreadlocks, Travers, who's been sharing their story in the chat, Melanie. You can have a look after. I'm going to add the link to the website as well. Melanie, I would email my MP, but he's blocked me. I mean, I tried to email a county court the other day and then got a response that my email was blocked from that. So, yeah, so this is what they're doing this end. But for anyone else, please just remember, I mean, Andrea did say it further up that, you know, basically at the end of the day, what affects one should affect all, because tomorrow it could be you or your loved one. And, you know, I'm a great believer in supporting as many people as I can, because people support me. People support me, I should be supporting them. And so on and so on. You know, we've got all sorts going on at the moment on top of this in this country right now, which I will say for another time, because I'd like to say thank you for joining. Melanie, thank you for being on here. And please, everyone, today is remembering dear Matthew Leahy. Thank you, Melanie.
Thank you. My love to all of you that are struggling and trying to find some peace at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye. Bye.